So after spending about 2 years in the Middle East, in Iran, I've found that a lot of people, they have this desire to come to Western countries, whether that's Iran or many other countries around the world for that matter. It's the same thing, because you hear it for the people who actually came to Canada or America, why they came here. They had certain ideas in mind, and then when they get here, they see that it's very different from what they were actually expecting. So just from being in Iran for a couple of years, I saw that many people had this desire to come to Canada, and they thought it was the absolute greatest thing. And while Canada is definitely beautiful, being in any main city, you will find one issue that you don't often see in a country like Iran. Now, the reason for this obviously is because of something like in Iran, drugs and alcohol are forbidden, whereas here, marijuana is allowed, and then alcohol is allowed, and then other drugs are frowned upon and they're illegal, but there's a lot of people who are clearly addicted to these and not a lot being done about it. Now, one thing people see is they think a lot of people in Canada, for example, have a lot of money and they're converting the dollar in their mind, so it can buy a lot of stuff within Iran, but they forget that a lot of people, actually they don't forget, they didn't know, that a lot of people within Canada or America might have to work 2 or even 3 jobs sometimes just to be able to make it by every month and be at $0 at the end of every month. Now, one thing that you will see here in Toronto, for example, is a lot of homelessness, and I just drove around a little bit to catch a bit of what's going on right now. There's tents in all different parks for people sleeping, and just homeless people walking through the streets, crazy people, for example, who have taken a little too many drugs and are a little bit insane. So at certain points I had to roll up my window and actually make sure my camera was safe, for one, and two, you don't know what some of these people might do. Now, this is not something you will really see in Iran, possibly in Tehran, but for the most part, you never see anything like this. Anyone who is homeless, they're certainly well hidden wherever they might be, because I've never once seen a person sleeping on the street in the city of Qom where I'm at. And this homeless issue is all through Canada, all through America, whether the city is big or small. Maybe not in the smallest of towns, even though it still exists there, but for the most part, in any of the cities, you will see homeless people, and it becomes just a part of the scenery. You have to walk by them because you'll never get to where you want to be ever. And anyone who's usually asking for money, I said usually, will be using it for drugs and alcohol, so you can't even help them out that way. So obviously you can try to help them out with food or something, but aside from that, it's certainly a massive issue. And just the smell of any city around most of the world, for that matter, like for example, many parts of Toronto, it smells like urine, and that's because you have homeless people peeing on the sidewalks and wherever, and overall the cities end up just being a dirty place. Now, this is not to bash Canada. Canada has done a very good job during this COVID crisis in helping out many people so that they don't end up homeless. But once again, you can't help necessarily those people who have chosen certain paths in their life and they are on drugs. Now, these people have chosen that path. They are in the streets for that reason, most likely. And unfortunately, there's not much you can do about it. They do have tons of different resources for those without homes, whether that's food. They had shelters. It's a bit of an issue with COVID as well right now, though, and many other things to support the homeless community, including welfare for that matter. Many people would be receiving a certain amount of money per month if they are unable to work. Now, in Toronto, there's a lot of different areas, and quite a few of them are considered low income, and some are very, I guess you can say, sketchy areas. So I just drove around Regent Park. That's known to be the area for drugs, and right now with COVID, not a lot of people are really out and about, but at night you'll definitely see a lot of people who are clearly on drugs. So at night you might come out and see a lot of people who are on drugs. You definitely want to lock your doors in certain areas like Regent Park, for example, because people will come up to your car. Most of the time, obviously, they're not going to open your car, but you just never know what they're going to do. Might spit at someone, and they have diseases half the time. So while people from other countries, they're looking at Canada and America and all these different places as a place where it's absolute heaven, everything is perfect. There's a lot of issues within our own countries that you are not seeing, and all you are generally seeing is that you think people have money. You don't see the difficulties that people go through. You don't see the bad side of things. You always see the good images of downtown, for example, or the nice neighborhoods. No one's ever really showing the neighborhoods where there's tons of different issues with drugs.